It just got very real as we have multiple huge updates to go over today, including one huge report surrounding Bradley Beal and his future with the Lakers. We're going to break down this report and discuss what it means going forward as it changes the landscape of the rest of the offseason for Rob Pelinka. We're going to break that down as well as discuss some other reports surrounding the Lakers' plans, including Rob Pelinka speaking out on their new additions. But before we get into it all, folks, if you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Lakers content. Moves are really going to start picking up here soon, and this is the place to be, so make sure to hit the subscribe button. Folks, a lot to go over today, and obviously we're going to be focusing in on not a trade target today, but Bradley Beal, because numerous new reports have dropped surrounding his future, not only with the Suns as it's coming to an end, but with the Los Angeles Lakers. Let's dive into these new reports, and let's start with this one here. We have new reports from last night into early this morning, leading to a lot of talk about the Lakers and Beal, but let's just give you guys some context here and start with this. This is from Evan Siddery. The Suns and Bradley Beal's agent, Mark, are working through the terms of a buyout that will be agreed upon soon. Beal will quickly prioritize his top fits and make a decision on a new team. The Beal trade will go down as one of the worst moves in franchise history for Phoenix. We're not going to be focusing on that. We know Phoenix pretty, not a great organization over the past few years, or as of late in general. Finally, the Bradley Beal era in Phoenix is coming to an end, and he's actually going to be agreeing to a buyout, which means the Los Angeles Lakers now have the opportunity to obtain him without giving up assets. And of course, he's been linked to the Lakers in the past. No one was going to give up assets for Bradley Beal at this point of his career, even though he's still been very good, not with his salary. Now, with that, Brett Siegel has come out and dropped a pretty big report here saying that the Heat, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Warriors, and the Bucks are the main 5 teams that are showing interest in Bradley Beal, and it seems like the Lakers are a top team for Beal. And of course, I covered it in a video a few days ago that the Lakers were going to be a top priority for Beal because of mutual interest in the past, and of course, his fit on the bench especially will be very good. However, there are some other teams that are interested. Now, the Heat just made a pretty big trade acquiring Norman Powell, so that might take them out of the Beal sweepstakes a little bit, though. Again, I still think they're probably going to be a pretty big suitor for him. The Lakers, number 2, and then of course the Clippers are also a part of that deal. The Warriors and the Bucks. Now, out of these teams, I think the Lakers have some of the best chance to get them out of the few. The Bucks probably, make the most sense. I'm not entirely sold on, Damian Lillard, with him being gone, Bradley Beal wanting to go over to Milwaukee. So it becomes interesting there. Now, you can see this here to give more details about this specific buyout. They're negotiating the terms of a buyout through Sunday and into the evening. Now, I assume the buyout's going to be finalized at some point today or tomorrow, which will then lead into him being able to actually sign with the team. Beal held a full no-trade clause in his contract, and the Suns couldn't generate a market for him. Upon completion of the buyout, Beal will be an unrestricted free agent. Miami is Beal's top suitor. Now, this dropped last night before they, of course, made a trade for a shooting guard today. Again, I'm not saying that that's going to completely take them out of the Beal sweepstakes, but it makes things a little bit interesting. And once again, another report linking the Lakers to Beal in this scenario. So clearly there's mutual interest there. If I'm Rob Pelinka, I think on a buyout, deal, I would probably prefer Beal over a lot of the other guys. And of course, I've covered this on the channel in the past. The outlook of Bradley Beal and the public perception is a little bit skewed to reality in the sense of he is not a $50 million player. He no longer is that. Was he ever that with the Wizards? You could argue. He's a volume scorer who has been fairly efficient throughout the entirety of his career. However, is he worth a veteran minimum or what? Even in the biannual exception? Absolutely. He put up 18, 17 points a game last year on very good efficiency, and every year he's been in, the league with the Suns and even back with the Wizards, he's been very efficient. And people just think he's been really bad because of the, Suns fans saying that Beal costs him all these different things. The money was what the problem was with Bradley Beal. It wasn't the actual production on the court. Now, we also got a report from Eric Pincus here. I don't know the future for Bradley Beal, but the Lakers give him a 2-year minimum contract with a player option on the second year, which is semi-standard for a vet taking a below-market deal after waiving Shake Milton and land just below the first apron. Because I know there's been a lot of conversations about can the Lakers even do this without getting into the first apron. I doubt they'd want to do this in order to put themselves into the first apron, had to pay more for ownership. That's not going to be the case. Assuming they get rid of Shake Milton, which I think is a big scenario in a very likely scenario with any of these moves here, especially, and we'll have another video covering that soon, but with trades and everything like that, they're going to get rid of Shake Milton, which allows him to give basically Bradley Beal the vet minimum, but also a player option on the second year, which gives him some certainty for the second year if he wants to return. But most likely, he comes out, he shows out next year with LeBron, shows out next year with Luka, Austin Reaves, off the bench or whatever it ends up being, then can take either a further, deal with the Lakers beyond that, or of course can go and look at other teams. It's similar to what almost, Damian Lillard's doing and, things like that. But Damian Lillard is, of course, rehabbing all of this year, so it's a bit of a different scenario. Beal is a very capable player who is available now. And It's not a number one need for the Lakers. The Lakers need a point of attack defender. They need someone who can play defense. But if you're able to, land a multi-time all-star here without having to give up too much, it makes a lot of sense. You can see this here. With the Bradley Beal buyout imminent per source, I'm anticipating he gives up $13 million of the remaining 110, which would then clear the way for the Suns to waive and stretch the resulting $96.9 million over 5 years and duck both tax aprons, which is very interesting because obviously, we didn't think there'd be a day where Beal was giving up that $13 million, but it seems like he really wants a new scenery, and he's made a ton of money in his career. Trevor Lane also goes out and says if Beal gives back that amount, it would provide significant savings for the Suns, albeit with a hefty amount of dead cap in their books. Beal would immediately become the top free agent on the market. And he would, right? And, of course, you could argue Damian Lillard, all these different things. Beal is a player now who, at the minimum, you're not getting a 17-point per game multi-time all-star who's still a very effective scorer, at the minimum very often. And it's almost the offseason of bargain deals, whether you look at Damian Lillard, whether you look at, of course, now Bradley Beal. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. And the Lakers are just heavily linked. And this is going to happen very fast. I expect this resolution by the end of the week, just given the fact that the buyout is being actively negotiated, according to Evan Siddery, according to Brett Siegel, according to Dan Wokey, all these different reporters. And, of course, now that he is available, the Lakers are at the forefront. It got very real around the Lakers' possibility, not because of the fact that he's not only because he's a perfect fit, but because he's able to do it, the Lakers that is, and Rob Pelinka, while remaining under the first apron, which really changes the outlook of this specific move for this team. And again, it's a guy who's never averaged less than 17 points a game since his sophomore season or his year 21 years old. So it's like he's such a good scorer, very efficient still. Like even last year in his down year, even the year before that, he's only 31 years old. I mean, this would be a very interesting piece to pair with LeBron, and I'm sure there's some mutual interest there. And when you compare it to a lot of the other teams that are involved, the Heat, the Clippers, the Warriors, I don't know if any team has a better chance to win the championship next season than the Lakers. You could argue the Warriors, you could argue the Clippers, you can't really argue the Bucks, can't really argue the Heat. I think this makes by far the most sense for Bradley Beal. So let me know down below what your thoughts are. Got very real, and a million reports have come out kind of confirming that. But let's also dive into a couple different things here. Now, if you're curious about their offseason right now and their current situation, you can see here, we'll have another video covering it, but feel free to pause and read through. Basically, they're probably going to get rid of the Shake Milton contract, which allows them to make another signing while remaining under the first apron. Jackson Hayes was signed with non-bird rights, and DeAndre Ayton and Jake Laravia split the non-tax mid-level, or the ML. So you do that, and you pair it with talking about Jake Laravia. Rob Pelinka came out and spoke out a little bit yesterday, and he spoke out specifically on the Jake Laravia signing. He also spoke on Ayton, but his comments for Ayton were a bit more generic. I wanted to dive into Laravia because he's a under-the-radar, interesting signing. He said Jake is a high IQ two-way player with ideal skills for a JJ Redick basketball system. He's a disruptive defender who uses his size and physicality to create turnovers. Offensively, he can score at all three levels and has a knack for creating space for himself and teammates. And he really kind of preached the two-way game that Jake Laravia is going to bring. I'm excited to see it because you look at the team on at a nutshell here. The defense is going to be a problem, and if Jake Laravia can step up and actually provide that, it'll change a lot for this team. But that'll wrap it up. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on this, the comments from Rob Pelinka, and most importantly, Bradley Beal being a Laker soon, according to, at least possibly according to multiple reports here.